All right, I'm really excited to be here with Suzanne Giesemann. I've been a fan of her work for a long time, and I'm just grateful that she's willing to share some of her wisdom and teachings with us in this short time we have together. First, let me say hi to you, Suzanne. Thanks for being here.
Hi, George. Thank you so much. I'm a fan of yours ever since I
Oh,
discovered you, so this is great.
thank you. Well, I want to just give people some context about your background, and then we'll get into the conversation. So, Suzanne Giesemann is a former U.S. Navy commander who served as a commanding officer and aide to the chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff on 9/11. And today, however, Suzanne provides stunning evidence of the existence of universal consciousness and our interconnectedness. And I just want to stop here. One of the things that I love about Suzanne is, well, she's well known as a medium, mystic, writer, spiritual teacher, and yet she's one of the most grounded people that I've met. So I love that she combines both, earthly wisdom and heavenly wisdom. So let me just kind of continue on her bio. Suzanne's written 13 books. She's been a keynote presenter for organizations including Edgar Cayce's Association for Research and Enlightenment, and the Academy for Spiritual Consciousness Studies, the Afterlife Research and Education Institute, and the International Association of Near-Death Studies. And one of the organizations that I've learned so much from regarding near-death experiences. Suzanne has led weekend retreats at well-known spiritual centers like Omega Institute, Lilydale Assembly, Monroe Institute, and Unity Village. She's also written and narrated a popular Mediumship series of Hemi-Sync recordings. And Suzanne, I'm going to ask you about that later. That sounds really interesting. Suzanne's gift of evidential mediumship has been tested and verified, and her work has been recognized as highly credible by noted afterlife researchers and organizations. So there's so much that I want to ask you. And I guess the first thing, so curious because this is in your bio, that your mediumship work was tested and verified. Do you want to just share a little bit about what that process was like?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's interesting because I'm just in the middle of preparing to do a video of evidence of the afterlife. And it brought back one of the research readings I did that I had completely forgotten was scored and verified as thoroughly as it was. Dr. Gary Schwartz's
Yeah,
Afterlife.
I'm a fan of his work too. That his books early on really helped me to settle into this idea that, well, maybe there's more than just this body and this world, right?
Right. So he didn't know who I was, but his mentor on the other side, a woman named Susie Smith, dropped in on me in my living room while I was reading one of his books.
Wow.
And she gave me evidence and said, you need to reach out to Gary. And so that is, I won't go into that long story, but he so trusted the evidence that Susie gave that he had brought me out to the Laboratory of Human Consciousness at the University of Arizona. And we did a whole bunch of research readings there. And then I became one of his stable of go-to mediums. And he would reach out and say, I need you to do a reading. I can't tell you anything about it, but this is very important. And then he would score every single bit of information that came through in the readings. So it's wonderful to have these double-blind experiments done. And then I've had another organization where they put the skull cap on your head and the wires, and they test what you're doing. And it's just been fascinating. My biggest goal, no, it's not my biggest goal. My biggest goal is to help people know that their loved ones are truly still with us, that life goes on, and that we are far more than this physical body. But my goal is to bring credibility to mediumship.
Yeah.
And that's what the research part does.
It's amazing. And you're doing that with your writings, your teachings, and also you teach a course on mediumship development, maybe more than one, but I know at least, right? So you teach people how to tap into that skill set.
Yeah, people are surprised you can teach that. And that's how I learned, because I didn't know my whole life that I would be doing this work. It came about after the death of my stepdaughter. And when I attended a class solely for the purpose of writing the story of the teacher, I discovered in that class methods and processes. And then she pulled me to the front of the room and I brought through a spirit. So ever since that awakening, I have documented what works, what doesn't work, why does it work. And then finally, when my husband encouraged me to teach mediumship. I put it all into a syllabus that was guided from my spirit guides, and I've literally taught thousands of people to connect with their own loved ones, with other people's loved ones. It's wonderful.
I think I first probably heard of you through a podcast interview of some kind, and then I checked out your website. This is amazing. And then one of my clients had actually taken your mediumship class and said it was just the best thing. So that's why I was like, okay. So, but one of the questions that I have, maybe some people as well, since so much of your work is guided by spirit, how do you, speaking of testing and verifying, how do you verify that the spiritual guidance is maybe of a more beneficent nature or advanced, wisdom and that kind of thing? Whereas, some people are like, well, I don't know, maybe there are spirits on the other side trying to trick us.
Oh, I hear that,
Yeah.
frequently, not a lot, but first of all, the greatest test is right here by testing it in your heart. And how does your body feel when you hear this wisdom and you act on it? Is it feel loose and free, or is there just a little bit of constriction? Does it lead to greater benefits in your life, greater peace and joy and love? It's an ongoing discernment. Do I follow this inner voice or not? And then if you're actually communicating with a higher being, you ask for a sign. Do I trust this or not? And you get beautiful synchronicities. But first, always give it that heart and just the gut test.
Yeah. There's that quote from, I think, in the New Testament: the fruit of the Spirit, right, is joy, love, peace, patience, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it's like, wow, if it's producing that kind of fruit in our life, if we're feeling more inner peace, we're being more wise and loving towards others.
Yeah, if anybody's going to trick me to be more loving to other people, I'll take that trickster. But otherwise, if somebody asks you to do harm to yourself or others, that's clearly not something you want to follow.
Right. Yeah, it's like, if it's like stoking your anger or your fear or things like that. So you have this huge body of work now. One of the things that you do, that you've been doing for years, is bringing through, I think it's a daily teaching from your higher spirit guides. It's called Sanaya Says. Yeah. And it's really what I love so much to love about it. One, it's very readable, it's very concise every day, and it's also, every time I read, I'm like, wow, that's good. That's really good. That's what a great reminder. Or that's a great perspective. It's all on your Facebook page. So of course, I'll be sure to link that.
May I tell you, George, that I sit right over here every morning and I ask for words that will help someone, whoever reads them. And then I post them on my website. It's actually, we changed the name to, instead of Sanaya Says, I think that I put that on Facebook so people know it's not directly me, it's the guides. But we created dailyway.org. And we send that out automated by email also, besides Facebook. And George, we just came up with a new system. I know that you would really appreciate this, that I didn't have a way of keeping track of how many people were subscribing. And we just got smart using technology and started tracking it. And that's why we have this beautiful new format by email. And we actually have over 6,000 people get that by email every day.
That is so great. Yeah. And it's dailyway.org. So easy to remember. So definitely check it out. It's free. And it's just a dose of inspiration and wisdom, very concise every day. I've seen a lot of these kinds of daily type of things, but I think yours is my favorite because it's always, every time I go, it's like, oh yes, that's good. That's really nice. Right on. So there are so many, there's so much right now, what we're recording this during the pandemic, and there's a lot of passions in many different directions right now. There's fear about, what our economy is going to be like. There's fear, of course, of contracting the virus and all these things. And there's just, it feels like the world has completely changed, in just a few months.
Yeah.
Any kind of guidance you've gotten about how we move forward in these times, how we relate to these very tenuous and uncertain times?
Absolutely. First of all, I have dozens and dozens of videos on YouTube, but if you go and search my name on YouTube and coronavirus, my
Yeah.
guide Sanaya gave us a long channeled message about how to deal with the fear. But what I've found in dealing with anything that unsettles us, from sitting in meditation daily and going beyond awareness of our human nature to soul nature, we just come to realize we get to choose our point of view. And when we're unsettled, we're caught in the story of Suzanne, the story of George, the story of all of us in this pandemic. But that's a temporary thing. Everything passes. But in meditation, you get to know this state of awareness where there's just peace. That's the permanent nature of our true being. And when you realize there are two different aspects of us, and that you can take that permanent point of view at any time, you look at things with a more neutral, compassionate, detached awareness, and you say, this is very interesting. This too shall pass. How can I bring more peace to those who are in fear?
Mm.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. And another sort of perspective or challenge, I should say, from a lot of folks watching this is, most of us watching this are small business owners of one kind or another. And, it's impacting our businesses. It's, but even before this pandemic, running a small business is always, it's both a lot of opportunity and a lot of creativity, but also a lot of uncertainty. And is there any guidance you want to just kind of touch on? And
as you
because
asked,
you also run a small business, so
yeah. As you say that, I got two hits from insights. One was being shown the sine wave, that as many businesses have gone this way, others have truly benefited. Can you imagine the millions that Zoom is taking in right now? That's what I'm
Amazon.
talking about. And how many people are switching to new ways of doing their work online, etc. So what I'm being shown is this is an opportunity for people to now say, well, can I truly remake my work, my life into something that's more in line with my passion? And yes, we still have to make money, but we're forced to find innovative new ways to be. So everything provides us opportunities, but they don't always come without discomfort.
Yeah. And so tell us a little bit about that. That's a really good, I think, important perspective, is that sometimes we think, well, gosh, if I'm living a spiritual life, it should all feel really good. I should feel good every day, right? I should be in bliss.
Let me share my favorite story, George. I was exhausted after doing too many events in a short period of time. And I said to my husband, I know exercise and fresh air is really great to recharge. We like to mountain bike, and there was a place near our home with these great flowy trails. I said, let's just go for a nice, gentle mountain bike ride. So out we go on the trail. I'm getting recharged, but we came to this part of the trail that was a little technical, rocks and roots, and getting bumped around, and I'm getting more and more irritable. And I said, this is supposed to be a relaxing ride. It's supposed to be easy. And I hear this booming voice in my head say, it's a mountain bike trail, for God's sake. And I burst into laughter, and I realized, oh my gosh, I'm expecting this to be something other than what it is. And this is life, for God's sake. It's not always smooth. There are roots and rocks and bumps and falls, but we pick ourselves up, and then you have the flowy parts, and it's always going to be that way. I feel our Constitution, is it Constitution? Whatever, we were done a disservice as Americans. If for those Americans listening to this, we have the right to happiness.
Well, I can't remember if that's the Declaration of Independence or Constitution.
I'm up here right now. I'm in this higher place. I used to teach political science, so that's kind of pathetic. But anyway,
it's one of those documents. But it's true. It's like, we have the right to happiness, and we're supposed to. And actually, it's interesting. I think just like in the business world, there's this illusion that, success means you're making a certain amount of money. And if you're only working 2 hours a week and you're making all this money, and that's success, I say success is where you're feeling on purpose, that you're seeing the impact you're making, that's success.
Yeah.
And of course, needs to be sustainable. But in the spiritual world, success, it's like, oh, I have inner peace all the time. And, I'm loving the people all the time and all that stuff. But just like you're saying, there are bumps. And I mean, as one example, just a few days ago, I had a thread on Facebook, and of all places, like a social media thread. And I'm used to social media by this point, of course, but this thread on Facebook that I was involved with triggered me so much that it really threw my inner peace for a day and a half. I was angry, genuinely angry. I was confused. And I was like, George, I thought you were a spiritual person. And especially, this thread was actually challenging George. You're not really empathetic. It's like, and it's like when there's a challenge on my spirituality, then I get especially angry because my identity of being a spiritual person is being questioned and all that stuff.
But that's the thing right there. And this is what I was saying. When you get to know there are two different views, I find keywords like story, and I'm like, oh, I'm in the story, caught up in the story. Okay, I can, step back. Isn't that interesting? But you're right. When you get the chemicals flowing, then you've got to clear the chakras, and it's work being human.
It is. You have an online course called Let Your Spirit Soar, right? Yeah. Tell us about it, because SOAR, there's an acronym there.
Yeah, I have 3 online courses. That was the first one. It's really the foundation for the spiritual path. It's not just mediumship, that comes later. This one is powerful because it's a way to connect the dots of so many teachings that we know on this spiritual path, but how to apply them in an instant. So SOAR is an acronym: see the oneness, open your heart, attune to higher consciousness, and reclaim your power. But within each of those modules are so many tools, the teaching, the background. I find it to be just a beautiful teaching. All of it always comes from my guide. So I'm just grateful.
Wow. Well, since we're talking about this kind of higher perspective, maybe we just touch for a moment on what you perceive to be the purpose of why we're here. Now, of course, every individual person has also individual purposes.
Yes.
We all have individual challenges, individual kind of destinies, but is there an overarching purpose that all of humanity shares?
Yeah, mine goes very deep. It's gone deeper the more I sit in meditation, but we really are the emanation of source, the activity of the one mind of consciousness, that if it doesn't arise and be active, it simply is. We're just being. And so after a while, why not have an experience? So we're here to experience everything that life with a capital L has to offer us. And relationships are the greatest way to do that. They can be the most challenging, but there's this evolutionary impulse, you can call it love, to create, to be. And we are created in the image of that one mind that just needs to create. So we're here to produce something more beautiful than that which has already been produced. That's us. So to just learn to love and experience life to the fullest.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's interesting. You mentioned, relationships are a big way for us to experience life and to grow, etc. I saw a kind of TV show. In that TV show, there was a quote. That's a famous author. I don't remember who it was. It was like, "Hell is other people." was the quote. I was like, it's just so cynical. And it's like, well, yes, if you are all about getting your way, if you're all about just pleasure and your own goals, then other people, of course, get in the way of that. But also, heaven is other people. When we realize that, or people, spirits, beings, it's like maybe growth is other people. It's like, that's why other people are in our life, and that's why not everyone agrees with us. Not everyone is going to go our way.
Yep. And I believe it's in the Let Your Spirit Soar course where I say that the people you live with are your greatest teachers. They offer your greatest opportunities for practicing being a little more evolved than when we came here.
Right. If we could achieve that, then we've gotten some growth. We've gotten something done in this life. Something truly important.
As a medium in connecting daily with loved ones across the veil, they've told me over and over, the first question your guides ask you when you cross the veil is, what did you bring us? And it sure wasn't material goods. It's how much brighter is your light shining than when you were born.
And you have, of course, daily practices that help you to reconnect, and that's Let Your Spirit Soar. In that course, you kind of teach these things. But do you want to?
Actually, George, I don't go into my really wonderful method that anybody can use to expand their consciousness in meditation, but that's on my website too, under free meditation gifts, and on YouTube. It's 7 steps to connecting with higher consciousness. I don't think I had really come up with that method in the Soar course. That was the foundation, and then we move on later.
Okay, yeah. So, so thank you, and I'm sure I'll put your YouTube video links and everything in there. So So there's kind of this journey that you lead people through. You know, you have this Soar course, which gives the foundational kind of perspective about life and about spirit, and then people move on to developing their mediumship capacities. Now, you have this thing that you recorded with Hemi-Sync. For those of you who don't know Hemi-Sync, it's a very well-known kind of tool, I guess, kind of consciousness tool to sync the parts of the brain to kind of bring you to a more whole way of, you know, being with life. But you've recorded a mediumship series with them. Tell us about that.
Oh, it's wonderful. They asked me to do that. And I said, well, anything we're going to do, it's always going to be better when it comes from spirit. So I channeled the scripts for each of the 4 recordings in the Hemi-Sync Mediumship Series, 4 different modules. If you bought them, they still sell them in CD. It's funny. But then I recorded those in a studio, and they put the audio tones over it. So these audio tones are kind of like training wheels for meditation. No matter how advanced you are, it adds a different layer. People comment on the reviews online that they have these mind-blowing experiences with the tones. So I love that. But they just reached out to me and said, hey, why not put all 4 of these into now a video course? So I've added more teaching to it, and that'll be out in maybe a month or so, because we just wrapped up the filming yesterday. But I find that makes a wonderful adjunct to my Making the Connection Mediumship course online. That's the nuts and bolts, the Serving Spirit, Making the Connection course of how to be a medium, how to overcome fears and doubts, the process to connect, all of that. But the Hemi-Sync Mediumship course is more of how to increase your vibration, how to reach the desired states for mediumship. It all works together, which is great.
Yeah, that's really cool. And you also do a monthly mentoring webinar where you are bringing forth the kind of the newest teachings that are coming through you. You answer questions for those who are on the webinar. It's really affordable. Last I checked, it was $25, right? Just to join. 2
solid hours of teaching. And
yeah.
I'm doing this for 2 years, and my guides have never let me down. They as soon as one's over, they just start giving me new teaching for the next month. So
check it out. Well, I'll put the link, but it's your name, SuzanneGiesemann.com/mentor. And it's a monthly thing. It's only $25, so it's really worth, you know, interacting with you in that way. So kind of, let me ask you another question that, you know, people who are trying to grow spiritually might have, which is, do I need to kind of hear some kind of, in other words, do I need to be psychic to be able to grow spiritually? Do I need to be hearing a voice of guidance in my head? Or how does, and maybe it's a question I have, like, how does mediumship, psychic gifts, and spiritual growth relate to each other?
It's interesting that the mediumship and psychic gifts actually arise naturally when one comes into alignment with the true nature, which is love. So by practicing presence regularly, by having a spiritual practice, by realizing I am the light, the psychic and mediumship is here. It is naturally part of that. So it's interesting that some people get these gifts, and then that becomes an ego thing, which detracts from the spiritual path. So not everybody who's psychic or medium is totally aligned, because once you've got the gifts, they're there, but then hopefully you come back in and align it, and then the connection just keeps opening even more beautifully. It's interesting.
Yeah, yeah, that's wow. And how does one know when those gifts are there? I mean, so of course, when some people seem to be born with it, you know, oh yeah, since I was a young age, I was able to see or hear or whatever. But then, and then others take your course and they develop it.
Right.
Um, like sometimes I wonder, gosh, am I psychic? But maybe I just don't know it. I just take it for granted, just part of my intuition. Some people call it intuition,
Right.
right? Like,
Yeah,
tell
we
us
all
just a
have
bit. Yeah.
intuition, and we can all learn to open that up. But
Mhm.
psychics are able to tune into the energetic field and the thoughts and the at times the future of someone else. And mediums do that and take it to another level, which is tuning into people's loved ones. And sometimes you know you can do it because the people show up in your awareness. You actually see them standing here with you. But others don't know they have it until you actually sit down one-on-one with someone and say, as we do in the classroom setting and even in the online courses, now let me see if I sense your loved one here. And then I teach you how to discern, is this my imagination or is this their loved one? We always do that with evidence, verifiable facts that you as the medium couldn't possibly know. And that's what's really changed my life, is I could fill you with stories of the evidence. I have lots of evidence of the afterlife videos online that just leave no doubt whatsoever. This is real.
I have no doubt either, because I've seen too many things. I've read so many things. One of the things I mentioned, Gary Schwartz, early on, and he tested you, and he's, you know, he refers to you. So, um, Suzanne, thank you so much for the work that you do. Really, I want to encourage people to. Well, there's so many places they can follow you, but some people are watching this on YouTube. Of course, Suzanne has a YouTube channel, and I'll link to that. Be sure to check that out. Some people are watching this on Facebook. Suzanne has a Facebook page that's very active. You have a podcast also, called Messages of Hope, and it's
Yeah.
with Unity Online Radio, and it's a great podcast because you interview guests that are also fellow spiritual teachers, mediums, etc., and you also bring through your spirit guides into, you know, answering questions from listeners. Um, and then you have your online courses, which kind of lead people step by step through your methodology. So thank you for the work that you do. Is there any send off words that you want to share with us as we complete this?
Simply to just trust the path you're on and to know that you're exactly where you need to be right now, but to know that you really do have guides. All of us do. And for me, what really opened everything up for me was realizing, instead of wondering, what do I do next? What's my next step? Just believe and trust that there is some higher being listening to you, ready to help you, and ask them directly, what is my next step? Show me, please. That kind of interactive, direct question all the time, no matter what you're wondering about, leads to really miraculous results.
That's amazing. There's no question too big or too small, right? For that.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you, Suzanne, for that.
Thank you,
All
George.
right. Well, I hope you all are feeling more inspired, and you go and check out the links below or above the video that you, where you want to follow Suzanne. And of course, you have your dailyway.org email list that shares that really concise inspiration every day. So thank you so much for your work, Suzanne.
And yours, George. You're a blessing.